Hey guys, what's going on? It's got Mons here. So today, obviously, is the beginning of the NFL playoffs. So it's going to be a quick 3-week journey before we get to figure out who's going into the Super Bowl this year. So I've kind of mapped out. Now we know what's going on for the games today. Today is basically round one, which is the wild card. So the games we got today are the Bills, Texans, Titans, the Bills at the Texans, the Titans at the Patriots, the Seahawks at the Eagles, and the Vikings at the Saints. So I'm just going through, I'm thinking in my mind who I think is going to win the games this week, and then I'm going to take it basically completely even further than that today. So I am going to do a follow-up. Obviously, after we do this, I'll predict obviously next week going forward. But based on today, there are changes that could be made if I'm wrong, based on the seeding. If somebody pulls an upset, which I will address, there's one possible upset I think this weekend. But I'm basically going to go round one in a wild card who I think is going to win. Then what that would set up for the matches in round two, which is your division. Then round three, which sets up your conference championship. And then ultimately the Super Bowl. So I've got all of that in terms of what I think. But again, obviously, if anything changes this week, well, if I'm wrong at any point, then that completely changes because you're talking about different seeds, different matches, home versus away, and then it's just like it's just like March Madness. One wrong match can basically change everything. All right. So for today, the 4:30 game is the Bills at the Texans. Now, for those of you who normally watch, normally I have my Pure Leaf tea. I stopped drinking that. I'll address that at some point. But I've got hardcore into cranberry juice, watered down with some ice. So that's what's in the bottle right here. Okay. So the 4:15 game, I'm going to address that first. Bills at Texans. I'm kind of torn on that. The Bills, they came out of nowhere. They finished at 10-6 this year. First time they've been to the playoffs, I want to think, since 99, I think it is. Or that was the last time they had a 10-win team. I think it was something like that. Definitely a solid team. The Texans, they're another team, solid. You got J.J. Watt coming back today. So he's going to be in there. You don't know how effective he's going to be. My biggest thing is I'm more confident in saying we know what the Bills are versus what the Texans are. The Texans, they have weeks where they're dynamite. They can look like the Chiefs. They can look like the Ravens. And then next thing you know, they have weeks where they're out there looking like the Cardinals or the Giants or the Browns. So it's just, they're a big question mark despite the fact that they're at home. There's that question mark. So despite all of that, I am picking the Texans over the Bills. Now today, which is tonight, which is 8:15, you have the Titans at the Patriots. That one I'm going to pause and I'm going to jump ahead to tomorrow's games. You figure we've got the Seahawks at the Eagles. That is probably, I would say, the easiest pick of the week. The Seahawks are going to beat the Eagles. Carson Wentz, he's been pretty much a flop all season. He's had a lot of trouble ever since basically they won the Super Bowl, which was Foles. It wasn't even Wentz. And injuries, I don't know. I don't know what's going on with the team. There's just a bunch of stuff there. The Seahawks, they're focused. You figure it came down to tiebreaker factor in regards to them being the number 5 seed versus them winning their division, and even so still being a number 3 seed. So again, the Seahawks, they don't deserve to be down here at a 5 seed on the road, but they didn't win their division. That's why they're where they're at. So they're definitely going to manhandle the Eagles. That's not even going to be a problem. Philadelphia, the crowd, Lincoln Stadium, that's not going to have anything to do with it. So that's the easiest game of the week. Vikings at Saints. I got a feeling the Saints are going to run the table this year. But I'm not going to say that. I'm going to say the Saints are on a mission this year. You figure this is year 3. Now go back 2 years ago. The Saints made it. They played the Vikings in the I want to say it was the divisional. Yeah. Yeah, so they were at Minnesota. They were playing a divisional game. If they had won that, they would have played Philly. Winner would have gone to the Super Bowl, which is when they had won it. They got robbed by the miracle play, the miracle in Minnesota, whatever they call it. So, and then last year, they got robbed by the Rams with that pass interference, which the NFL didn't call. So the Saints are on a mission. I think Breeze is going to try to do all he can do to get one more ring at the end. And especially with the rumors being that they might sign Antonio Brown, which that's going to be a big thing if that happens. But to make a playoff push to try and get Breeze a ring, I think that'll be something interesting. So I got the Saints over the Vikings there. Now backtracking to tonight's game, I got the Titans at the Patriots. This was, for me, the hardest pick of the week. The Titans... Tannehill being in Miami, you thought, what's this guy doing? He's horrible, he's horrible, he's horrible. He got an injury, I think it was an ACL, and then that's when they had to go out and then they got Cutler, which that was an even bigger mistake. When they had Matt Moore, they didn't have to get Cutler, but he came back for 1 year last year, and then he signed as a backup with Tennessee this year, with Mariota being the starter. Mariota got benched, I think it was week 8 or 9, I want to think, and Tannehill's pretty much been on fire since. If you go through every time you talk about the analytics that you see on Fox 5, ESPN, stuff like that, his QBR, touchdown, interception, completion percentage, all that stuff, he's pretty much up there. So that team at Patriots, I realistically think they can pull the surprise. There's only 4 things I'm hesitant about picking the Titans over the Patriots. You're playing Tom Brady. You're being coached against Bill Belichick, okay? All the experience that team has, and you're in New England. So those 4 reasons are the only reasons that I will be picking New England over the Titans. So that basically breaks down this week's games. Now, I'm opening up my phone here, because what I did was I did a little thing based on if these teams win going forward. Now you're going to the divisional round and then going to the conference round, which would be the NFC playoff, the NFC championship, AFC championship, obviously then going forward to the Super Bowl. So even though I'm going to just hypothetically play that out now, what I think could happen, I'm still going to readdress this. This week is going to be week 1 or part 1 of my playoff video here. Next week will be the part 2, in which based on that I'm going to lock in and we'll recap to see how things are actually shaping up. All right, so if my picks play out correctly, remember I have the Texans over the Bills, I have the Patriots over the Titans, the Seahawks over the Eagles, and I've got the Saints over the Vikings. That's what I'm picking. So on the basis of that, what did my phone do? My phone just did something funny. So on the basis of that, if all those games pick out, then next week going into the divisional, you would have the Texans at the Ravens. All right. You would have the Patriots at the Chiefs. You would have the Seahawks at the 49ers. And then you'd have the Saints at Green Bay. All right. So on the basis of those 4 games next week, I got to keep doing this over here to keep the screen on here. On the basis of those 4 games, if it's set up that way, the Ravens would definitely handle the Texans, so that wouldn't be an issue. The Saints at Green Bay, I think the Saints would handle. Green Bay. I know the 2 things factor on there is, okay, you do have the Saints outside on the road in January versus being at home in a dome. Obviously, Breeze would much rather be at home, but I still think being on the road, I think he can get it done. The overall team he has, I think, is a better team what he has versus what Aaron Rodgers has. So I would see the Saints beating Green Bay right there. You would have a rematch of the Patriots at the Chiefs. So you figure this would be a rematch of last year's playoff game, and then obviously this year's in-season game. I would see the Chiefs beating the Patriots there. All right, because you figure it's going to be a tough road for the Patriots because you figure they have to get past the Bills today. All right. Then, depending on what happens seed-wise, they'd either have the Ravens or the Chiefs next week. Okay. And then chances are if you'd have to beat one of those, and you'd probably have to play the other winner, which would either be the Ravens or the Chiefs in that second round if you get past the second round. So they have a very hard road. And then even in the Super Bowl, if they could do it, you figure you would have the 49ers, the Saints, the Packers. The dogs going crazy. So the NFC is stacked this year too. You've got the Seahawks. Any team, realistically, except for the Vikings and the Eagles, any of those other 4 teams are stacked, which would all give the Patriots a run for their money. But so I would see the Saints over Green Bay. I would see the Chiefs over the Patriots. I would see the Ravens over the Texans. And then your other matchup next week, based on my predictions being correct, you would have the Seahawks at the 49ers. Now that's a toughie. Kona, come on. Now that's a tough one because you figure in mid-season, Seahawks won their game at San Francisco late in the season, which was, I think it was actually last week. The 49ers, they won their game at Seattle. So they basically split it. They had the better record there. So that would basically, on this game here, I would say the 49ers over the Seahawks. Now that would now bring us forward to the conference championship, where you have your AFC matchup versus your NFC matchup here. On the basis of my predictions sticking forward, you would have the 2-seeded Chiefs at the 1-seeded Ravens, and then you would have the... Let's see, the Saints. The Saints would be the... What do I have them at? The Saints are at the 3 seed, so they would be at the 1 seed 49ers. On the basis of this, I personally, those 4 teams, I really don't care who would win. I don't, because any of those 4 teams are completely different. You know, we haven't seen the Saints in the Super Bowl. Even though they've been very close the past 2 years. You haven't seen the Saints in the Super Bowl since Katrina. The 49ers you haven't seen in the Super Bowl since the Colin Kaepernick era. All right. And at that point, you had Harbaugh versus Harbaugh. You had the Harbaugh Bowl when they played the Ravens. But even so, the last time they won it was back at the 95. That was the NFL's 75-year anniversary. So that was 25 years ago, the last time the 49ers won it. The Chiefs... I think it's been a long time. I don't know. But still, there's the fact of you kind of want to see that for Andy Reid. Andy Reid won the team number 2, and then maybe Patrick Mahomes and whoever of these other players 3. So the only reason, prime reason for the Chiefs you'd be pulling for is obviously for Andy Reid, because he's a good coach. And then obviously you would have the Ravens. Again, the last time they won it was when they beat the 49ers. And they've only won it twice. And you figure go back before that, they beat the Giants many, many years ago. So now recap this. Chiefs at Ravens, Saints at 49ers. I'm good anyway. I really don't have... It really doesn't matter to me how it pans out. If I have to pick, just to see the most exciting Super Bowl possible, I would pick the Saints and the Ravens. That would be my personal pick. If I had to say what is the most exciting matchup on the biggest stage for the Super Bowl, the Saints-Ravens, I think that would be the matchup. They're 2 completely different types of teams in terms of Drew Brees is a bomber, just tosses. He got all of his records this year, passing yards, the touchdowns, all of that. He's pretty much the number 1 quarterback that you can possibly have in NFL history. Lamar Jackson, he's changing the game. He does more with his feet than he does with his arm. But the team still puts up big points. So I would love to see a Super Bowl where you have something like 45-42 or something like that. That would be a high-scoring game. I would love to see that. So that's going to be my rundown. Again, it's all hypothetical. My main focus is obviously what's going on with this weekend. Like I said, this is going to be, I'm going to call this part 1. Next weekend will be part 2, where I'm going to see, all right, did my predictions pan out right and go forward from there, or is it going to change and I may have to reevaluate what's going on? So we're going to go through it, we're going to do this, and we are going to see what happens.